Welcome. Introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you? What have you done? Like what got you here today?
Right. Yeah. My name is Cannon. I am the founder of an agency called Remodel Favor, where essentially we work with residential remodelers and general contractors, design build firms, really anybody that's licensed and capable of doing kitchens, baths, whole home renovations, ADUs additions, all that. And essentially we help with their client acquisition. Of course, getting more clients, getting more contracts, really automating their lead follow up, and also helping them establish referral partnerships with other professionals, which we can definitely get into that later. But yeah, I've been running it for the past year and 2 months. I've probably worked with 30 US based remodelers by now. So yeah, that's really what I've been up to.
That's awesome, man. First thing I wanted to ask you is what got you, to where you are now in terms of the service that you have put together, the different aspects, all of those things. Like, how did it just come all together?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. The funny thing is, especially starting out, you're kind of playing this guessing game, especially with lead generation, whether it's on Facebook or Google. So I guess I just started out, thankfully enough, a guy from Boston was willing to give me a shot. And the even better thing is he's still with me today, but he gave me a shot. I ran some campaigns for a month. He made an ROI. And at that kind of point of the phase, I was really trying to determine what I was wanting to do. And so as soon as I was able to help him out, I knew, this is what I wanted to go into, especially like being a veteran myself. A lot of the general contractors that I work with are veterans themselves. So I kind of know the lingo. Of course, like I'm not licensed to hang a door frame. Like I couldn't build anything, but it's very easy to talk to them. So I start out with one. I onboarded a couple of other remodelers, and eventually, after working with like 30 residential GCs and spending probably close to 500,000 on ads on Facebook and Google. Once you have all that data, it really becomes a refined process, and you know exactly what's going to work, so that whenever you onboard a new guy, like the campaigns, the ad copy, the offer, the landing page, you already know what's going to work and what's going to actually convert, which in turn it just gets them even better results. That's why like agencies with the more data always get the better results. And that's why, starting out, a lot of people focus on product, but I'm a big product guy myself, but the thing is like you just got to get your data. That's my opinion. Yeah.
What do you think is enough data? Like, how do you gauge, amount of data? Like, like somebody listening to this, how do they know if they have enough data to make decisions,
Right.
on what to do with their marketing?
Right. Yeah. So, with data, it all kind of starts out with what exactly are you going to advertise? I know for kitchens and bathroom models, the two most popular platforms are, excluding all the third-party lead vendors like Angie, Thumbtack, all that. The two biggest popular ones are like Facebook and Google. Now, with Google, in my opinion, it's starting to get a lower barrier to entry, especially with the smart campaigns that they're rolling out. You can do Google LSAs now. The thing is, with Google local service ads, it's more of like quick fixer upper jobs, people who have a urgent problem and they need a fix right now.
Yeah.
But you know, I know how I kind of made the decision to initially start out with Facebook ads. We do Google ads now as well. We do both. But I started out with Facebook ads just because I knew it's a quicker ROI, right? Especially when, you're doing advertising and you would like to make an ROI sooner rather than later, and you need a bigger quantity of leads to be able to work them. I wanted to start out with Facebook ads because you're not relying on however many people are in that service area actively searching for your specific solution. So that's kind of how I made the decision with Facebook ads. And I was in terms of gathering data on what works. Of course, at first, besides doing outside research, whether that's on YouTube or kind of, funnel hacking others, you're kind of on your own in terms of that. But I would say, kind of our benchmark is anything below $40 per lead is amazing. I I will stick to that ad because in our opinion, as long as the quality is good, we're not sacrificing quality. I'll definitely stick with it. So, with data, just the more you spend on the platform, that really the better the results will get.
Interesting, because I know that a lot of people have done a lot of Google ads in the past, and then it started getting really popular in a way. So a lot of, a lot of competition, and now the cost per lead, even with painters, sometimes it's $100, $150. So how do you manage to make sure that you're targeting the right people in order for those leads to convert? Because you need them to convert. You can't just play the volume game.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of seeing the same number for Google, even like in competitive areas like Boston or LA, it could be even $200. So, with Google, yeah, it's definitely more competitive. Sometimes the click, depending how intent based it is, it can be upwards to $20 per click. Whereas Facebook,
Yeah.
we're getting like 50 cents or 50 cents to $3 per click. So, you know, starting out, of course, like I said, I always go with Facebook ads, especially since we're able to generate more quantity of leads that we're able to work. Now we have a couple of clients who have like very specific like projects that they want to go after with this specific client. Like in one guy we have, he wants to go after these very specific room additions, nothing else, basically nothing under 100K, right?
Okay.
No bathrooms, no kitchens. And so for that, it's like, yes, we could run Facebook ads, but the people who can afford that, less than 1% of the population, the people who can't afford it, but who can't afford it and would consider it, it's even less. So for that instance, we're more than happy to go with Google. The quantity is going to be a lot less. The cost is going to rise, but as long as you're able to generate those type of leads who can afford it and they're serious about signing a contract, then that works for them. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty much
something
just
else that's great about Facebook too is that you can get results really quickly, whereas Google sometimes there's, a longer ramp up, especially if there's a lot of competition. And so question for you is when you're launching both of those, have you ever noticed a big difference in the cost to get a project with Facebook versus Google Ads? Is it sometimes lower with Google Ads if it's a higher ticket, or is it, for lower amount of jobs, is it cheaper with Facebook? What have you seen?
Yeah. So a common myth I hear is that Google produces more quality leads. Now, that can be true, but I don't tend to say that because with Google, it's a search platform, and so when you advertise on there, you really open yourself up to the internet. We've ran into so many issues with people from Southeast Asia, putting VPNs on, and then they're putting their info into the contact us form asking for a job. That can be an issue where with Facebook, yeah, just like you said, it's a lot faster and it can sometimes even after $1,000, one of our clients can close upwards of like a 50K kitchen or like a 40K bathroom. Like our recent case study, Bob, it's on the YouTube channel. Granted, he's a very good closer. He's very good with people, easy to talk to. But within 4 weeks, he closed 4 kitchen bathroom models. Now, is that possible with Google? It might be, but the great thing was, number one, he's in a good area, Dallas Fort Worth, a lot of wealthy people who are able to afford that kind of thing. And number two, less competition. Everybody's, bidding on those specific keywords. And also like with, of course, Facebook, it's like maybe 40, $50 to show it in front of 1,000 people. And when you're targeting certain zip codes, it's really no brainer. Typically what we like to go for is like at least 30 leads in a month. And then out of those 30, we book maybe 10. And then out of those 10, just depending on how many they close, they'll make that ROI. So with Facebook, it's kind of funny. It's like after like so many thousands spent on the ad spend, it's kind of like a predictable process now where
Yeah.
with Google, it's the up and downs. So
Yeah, whenever we were running Google a lot, we always saw that it was probably the most inconsistent across different markets over Facebook. And so Facebook was always most reliable. And something that I want to get your insight on too is that if you're dealing with a company that has a good sales track record, I oftentimes feel like Facebook ads gets better results simply because there's more volume, there's more leads that can be nurtured, that can be sold to over Google, where it's more so of a, quality over quantity approach, but sometimes that ends up backfiring. Is that also what you've observed?
Right. Yeah, most definitely. And the thing with Google too is, of course, we're like an advertising agency, but I don't specialize in building websites. And with Google, oftentimes we're using their website. And so when the customer comes in, oftentimes like they'll call. So we don't actually have that data. We don't know what their name is, what actually they're looking for. Of course, the client does, but we don't really get that internal feedback. And so, but with Facebook, we're building landing pages. We're collecting, all right, what's are they exactly building? What's the timeline of it? And also when you're able to generate a big quantity of leads with a company who has their sales team dialed in, they'll just love it, right? Whereas with Google, yes, you can get higher quality, but it's like the volume is going to be lower. And now, we implemented appointment setters, into our own company. And so we're sending them live transfers now, and it's really just kind of a match made for success. So like as long as like and I'm sure you've experienced this too, like as long as the company isn't lazy or, if they're dialed in with their sales, they're going to have a great experience with it.
100%. Even that's something that we've implemented in our sales process. And it's unfortunate, but like we tend to pick companies that are, doing more in sales just because we know that it's like putting fuel on fire, whereas it's not like lighting a fire that doesn't exist yet. That's yeah, that's very
Right.
true.
Yeah, especially for like a done for you service. If it was a coaching program, maybe it would be different, but like a done for you service, they have to be doing a certain revenue count. And even in my own ads, when I'm trying to get my own customers in my lead form on Facebook, I say, hey, are you a remodeler or general contractor above 500K in sales? And if they click no, then they get conditionally filtered out. Facebook doesn't even count it as a lead. Now, if they say yes, great, that's my ideal client. They become a lead. Facebook sees, all right, this certain person became a lead. I'm going to show my ad to more of those type of people. So yeah, that's another big insight I've learned is the companies who are doing higher revenue, oftentimes they'll have a better sales process and they're just a lot easier to work with. So yeah, 100% agree on that.
And you know what? This is something I've actually almost learned through working with painting companies, but the biggest guys who have, the sales rep that are doing 2+ million in sales a year, which do exist, by the way, in the painting scene, pretty incredible. They oftentimes say no more than they say yes because they know that if they're only working with their ideal client, it's building their brand, they get more of those referrals in, and doing the same thing as a marketing company, it builds your brand even more. But I don't want to touch on that right away. What I want to ask you about is I was actually surprised by this. You said that you do live transfers over scheduling estimates or scheduling an appointment with the lead. Is there a reason that you do it that way?
Yeah, it's with remodeling, especially with some of the clients we work with, the ticket is just so high and they know their business better than my appointment setter is going to know. And so he might get all the necessary info. It might sound like a match made in heaven. And if it does, then great, like we'll live transfer them. But the contractor, on the other hand, he's still and it depends on the client, but sometimes they'll want to just kind of verify the info, see where they're at in the process, if they're just looking to learn more, if they have designs completed, permits approved, or, of course, if they have the budget for it. So it's all very customized, but typically they just love the live transfers because it's basically a lead handed on a silver platter where they're so used to with House or Angie or Thumbtack, where they get the lead and they have to stop what they're doing. Whether, if they're managing a client, they have to call that lead within 5 minutes or else they're going to just get 15 other estimates and they're in bidding wars at that point. So yeah, we prefer the live transfers. Now, with that being said, if they don't answer the phone, which happens, as much as I hate to say it, it happens more than not. I'm sure if I looked at the stats tracker, most of them don't answer the phone. And so if that's the case, then oftentimes we'll book them on the calendar for an estimate.
So what happens is that you send it to the client doesn't answer, you pick the phone back up and then you put it in the calendar.
Right. Yeah. So typically
Interesting.
the appointment setter's like, yeah, Bob unfortunately wasn't able to pick up the phone. Now, what we can do is I can
Hmm.
just put you down as request a call back and Bob can give you a call later in the afternoon. Or if you want to be opposed to it, I can just book you in for that appointment right now and kind of we can get it going. He can provide you that estimate. And so that's kind of typically the route we take. And oftentimes people are more than happy to. So I guess like what's been the biggest insight that you have had when it comes to not only like painting advertising, but advertising overall?
That's awesome. Awesome question. Couldn't have asked a better question, because this is probably the biggest takeaway I've ever learned from advertising, especially on social media. So one of my mentors runs a huge company, right? And they do advertising for, you name it, they've done it. Okay. And for me, when I was, beginning a while ago now, I always saw this and I was like, well, how the hell did they do all the complexity and all of that stuff? And it just comes down to having the consumers, I guess you could say, mm,
Their thought process.
yeah, it's understanding the consumer that really helps. And especially on social media, a lot of people are just running before and after pictures or just picture ads, and what they've done, and ultimately what we've started doing too,
Mhm.
is doing more organic ads. So ads with, like, let's say, owner of the company is holding the phone, filming a selfie video, those kinds of things. They just work overall. And a big part of that too, I think, is because over time, let's say somebody sees an ad of the same guy over and over and over again, it almost builds trust. It's almost like you've met them without really meeting them, especially since you hear their voice, you see their face, you see some projects, and it typically converts less leads up front, but then over time, people get used to the face and then it converts higher quality leads. And for us, it's all about the cost of getting a qualified appointment. Because if it's qualified, they can close our clients. And so we're always optimizing for that cost. And we've seen that if we're trying to do those ads where it's just simply just satisfying, videos or just before and afters or just all those things without the personal touch to it, we get a lot of leads, even more than with the personal stuff, but they're just not as qualified. A lot of them, they're not going to pick up the phone, they're not going to get scheduled, they might cancel. And the cost of actually getting that qualified appointment is higher than if we just did the organic type ads. And we've had a lot of clients too that see them after we edit them and they're like, oh, this looks like, it was, kind of like cardboard cereal box type thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't seem very great. And those are usually the ads that perform the best, because guess what? They don't look like ads. People, they
Yeah.
don't have that bias built in them of just, oh, ad skip, next, next, next. Like, you might, your grandparents or whatnot, or even your parents, they're watching TV, ads come on, mute TV, go do something in the kitchen, come back 15 minutes later. It's
Like muscle
automatic.
memory.
So
Yeah.
when you disrupt that, you get a lot more people that are actually qualified to work with you. So that's probably
Yeah.
one of the biggest ones, just running more organic ads.
Yeah. Have you found too that there's like a better opt-in rate for those organic ads, like sees the ad, clicks it, and then converting into a lead?
Yeah, I think it's twice the amount. Like, let's say the non-organic ads is like 10% of the clicks. These ones, it's 20 to 30%, which sometimes stresses me because I'm like, whoa, if we have just a little inconsistency, the numbers go crazy. But no, it stays the same even with like thousands and thousands of ad spend. So definitely.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that because it reminds me of this one campaign I was running for a client. It was actually my very first client out in Boston. We decided to do a video ad and it was going to be very organic. And basically what happened was he was going to be in front of his truck and he I gave him a script, but actually what happened was he actually said the wrong script and he sent it to me after, of course, they filmed it. He had his editor edit and I was like, you know what? Screw it, we're gonna run with it anyway. He was talking about something completely different, and also in the ad, he's stuttering. He's like moving his hands in this awkward way. He's not horrible on camera, but it wasn't
It's
the best.
close.
Yeah, it wasn't the best filmed, and I didn't have much confidence in it, but I ran it anyway. There wasn't much congruency between the video and like the actual ad, but we ran it anyway, and it turns out it was like one of the best performing ads we've ever run. The opt-in rate was way higher, went from like 10% to 20%, even like on a landing page, which is like I don't really see that a whole lot, especially for like a quiz funnel where we ask them like multiple questions and then it asks for the contact info. So the opt-in rate was better. And also with that ad, that when the owner's actually on camera, it actually improves the word of mouth. One thing he mentioned to me, and I don't know if you've also experienced this, but he's heard his name and his company out, at restaurants or just at random events. And it actually, with advertising, of course, improves the word of mouth, but definitely like the organic video feel does as well. And we got so confident we started like asking more qualifying questions, like of course like the budget and stuff, and it didn't change anything. People were saying, super high budgets, like his ideal clients. So yeah, the organic stuff definitely have to implement more.
That's awesome. I love that you mentioned that because I actually have a client in Calgary who said that his neighbor recognized him on the ads, and he was like, "Yeah, my neighbor loves the ads." I was like, "How did that happen?"
That's yeah. Yeah, the video ads do great. I've tested a bunch of stuff, and what's best performing and really like no matter what I test, the thing that goes unbeaten is of course the organic video ads and just picture collages as well. But even then, like organic videos still outperform because when I started like the picture ad collages, I was like one of the only few. But now, of course, there are more. Even on my own ads, I get people opting in, and I can just tell just because of the UTM tracking, like they didn't come from ads, they came from a Facebook ads library that they're funnel hacking. So yeah, that definitely organic organic video ads and then collages have performed the best for us by far.
Yeah,
Uh,
and something I think that's a really big piece too, and maybe we can dive more into that as well, is that I feel like a lot of companies, especially brick and mortar companies like painting contractors, remodelers, GCs, they don't really see direct advertising the right way. And I'm sure you'll see what I'm saying in a second here, but it's not really about the cost to acquire that initial person that really matters. It's the referrals that you get from that person. Not only that, but it's also the quality of the people that you work with. Like if I had a painting company, if I were to get a break even or even a 10% profit margin on the leads that I get from social media, just maybe it's competition, maybe it's something that drives the cost really high, I'd still be happy because I know that I can charge more on the referrals, or that person might come back and, ask for even a bigger job, at which point I can still charge the same, get that person through the door. And so many companies are going to see advertising as in, oh, I need to make a direct return on investment on this. But even if I look at my clients' results, they maybe make, 10 to 15, return on investment just from the ads. And then on top of that, they make an extra 10x just on the first level of referrals that they get from those people. So it's really not about that. And if you're always optimizing for the lowest cost per lead, lowest cost per, acquisition to get those jobs through the door, you're gonna do what? You're gonna work with lower quality people. You're gonna get less of those referrals. They're not gonna be as happy, and ultimately it's just a train that goes to hell. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Do you actually, I'm curious, do you actually mention that in maybe the onboarding call or your process? Like, hey, of course, we're gonna really go for as many leads at the highest quality as we can. But of course, like setting expectations and also mentioning, hey, this could also boost your word of mouth and referrals as well. Do you mention that to them?
Yeah, 100%, right? It's the value that they get, and it's all about being on the same page because the moment, problems always happen when the expectations of one aren't equal to the expectations of the other. And one of the big things around that is we tell them that even if they don't make an immediate return from the ads, just having their face out there is going to get them a return in the future. So, like, it's just about investing in the longer term as well. And that's also why we like to work with bigger companies. Sometimes we'll take smaller ones if we feel like confident, but we'll take bigger companies because if they don't have a shitty service, guess what? They're not going to get referrals. They're going to underbid jobs, and then they're not going to have any margins. And it's not going to work out, right? So if we work with bigger companies, have a better service, we're confident that working with them is just going to be more fuel on the fire, then of course it's just a win-win.
Right. Yeah. And going back to kind of the advertising aspect of it, I'm just curious, do you guys have specific like ad copy, landing page, kind of offer, of course, like video creative? Do you guys pretty much have it down to where it's almost like a product at this point where it's kind of just plug and play, or are you guys a little bit more customized?
So it's really interesting that you mentioned that because it really depends on the markets. There's some markets that we're in where we don't run any video ads simply because they're just not getting results. They're just not converting into jobs or qualified estimates, and it's solely image ads. So we do have, I guess, kind of blueprints of we know, hey, this works, this works, this works. And so when we're launching new campaigns, unless we've already worked in that market before for whatever reason, then we're just going to test out a bunch of different things. And whatever sticks in that first 1 or 2 weeks is just what we'll focus on and then keep pushing more and more and more. So to answer that question, yeah, we do have, in-house SOPs or, I guess procedures around doing those kinds of ads, but it is something that you have to adjust to, which is why I see a lot of contractors get burned by, agencies doing, and I say agencies because it's usually just one guy doing, charging 500, 1,000, $1,500 a month. And they're like, oh, well, marketing doesn't work. No, it's just that these guys don't have the money to actually offer a great service that gets you great results, right? So that's also why marketing costs a lot of money. And that's why like it kind of filters itself out, right?
Yeah, yeah, and oftentimes like they, and I want to bring up this point. Of course, like they don't have a lot of data. That's another thing. And the second thing is going into my agency, I would say it's about 80% productized. It's very productized. I have a list of probably 10 variations of ad copy, 3 landing pages, an offer that I could give to a VA in the Philippines and they could run it. Now, of course, I don't really trust a whole lot of people to touch the ads manager, so I still run it myself. But I would say like from my perspective, it's very productized, but just like you said, there might be a market where those ones just don't work as well. I can think of a few locations where we put in what's been working for everybody else across the states, but we just get into this one market and it just doesn't work. Or maybe we just need to make a few tweaks to it and really just need to come up with better marketing. Right now, the problem I see is sometimes, like you said, agencies can be just 100%. And what I've been seeing the trend lately, especially the last couple months, is the same type of ad where it's called the Hope framework. It's the guy who invented it, very respectable guy, very great at marketing. And it's not a bad ad in itself. It's basically long ad copy, like here's why we're the best value and we provide the best price. Now, the problem was every single new marketer started doing that to where they don't really understand, obviously, the customer buying journey. Like, especially in remodeling, it's a whole lot different than, and even in painting too, it's a whole lot different than just running a $21 chiropractor voucher. You kind of have to understand the customer and what exactly that they want. But what I've seen the last couple of months is everybody just running the same old long ad. Like if I just typed into the ads library, like I know $7,000 for a roof, right? I don't know if you've seen those, but they're just everywhere. Now the problem is the prospects are starting to become numb to that offer and that messaging. And in turn, the ads don't work. They eventually get burned. Boom, Facebook ads are dead. And that's really the end of story, right? And so yes, it's kind of my point is, it's great to have productized ads, but you kind of like a prepper, I guess you have to prepare for the worst, right? You have to prepare for it not to work.
100%. And it's always about adjusting to the market. And ultimately, I think the reason why, companies or especially agencies get really big and then they fall down and then somebody else picks up their slack is just because the operational drag that these guys have it's insane compared to what a smaller company that is really hungry to get results. And so they're able to adjust really quickly. While the big guy, they take months, right? And they months, right? I think
Mhm.
something that you mentioned too is coming up with new strategies. How do you come up with new strategies in terms of your, service running ads?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. The with remodeling, it's definitely a bigger ticket item. And so you have to look at like the client's buying journey when they're deciding on a remodel. And this can really kind of be applied to any industry, but typically I find that, or we find that 97% of people, like at the very top of the funnel, they're thinking, all right, like, do I even want to do this? Then they go a bit lower. All right, what's it going to look like? And then they get a bit lower. All right, now that I know that I want to do it, I know what it's going to look like. Now, what's this going to cost? And then at the very bottom, like the 3% of the market, they have all those questions answered. And now they're kind of thinking to themselves, all right, who's credible to bid this job, or which company can I trust to actually build this? Now, the problem is like every whether it's Angie, Thumbtack, of course, everybody's going after that small 3%. And even in like Facebook or Google marketing, it's all going after the people who are ready to buy now. And that's great. I have advertising that goes after the people who are, very low in the funnel. But I believe, especially with remodeling, where people ask themselves so many questions before they pull the trigger to sign a contract to get their house gutted, the worst thing that you can do is only do advertising and marketing to one segment of the market. So what really made me make a change and what I decided on is actually have all my bases covered and advertise to multiple segments. So of course, the people who are thinking about design, the people who are thinking, they see a picture collage. Oh yeah, that's a nice kitchen. I've been wanting to do that for a while. Or especially, and this is the question that a lot of people care about is, of course, price. And so to go after the people who are thinking, all right, what's going to cost? A lot of them will have a number in their head of what it's going to cost, but maybe due to like a lack of trust, like especially with contractors, they might not get an estimate just yet, or they just haven't pulled the trigger. And so the best way to pull them out of that hiding is to use an estimator tool where we essentially built it on a software where they can answer a couple questions depending on square footage, the siding, flooring, plumbing. They answer probably about 12 questions on what they would like done. They see a realistic price tag of what that's going to actually cost, whether it's an addition or a kitchen. And then from there, we offer essentially free estimate and design consultation, get their info, and they become a lead. And that's really like transform the marketing, because what I saw was the lead costs in some areas, like Atlanta, for example, the people going through that estimator funnel are actually cheaper leads than the people who are like doing the regular advertising, which is funny because in the estimator funnel, they see if it's an addition, for example, they'll see like a 6-figure price tag. They'll answer more questions. And so you'd think there's like more friction there, but oftentimes that's really what happens when you put the right offer in front of the right people at the right time.
You're providing value, so
yeah.
it just feels natural for them to keep moving through, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I think it was Ishmael who told me this. One of the best insights he's had is for like your first line, or it could be the headline, is like asking a question. So for those estimator funnels, like what better question? Like, what would your dream kitchen renovation cost? And the engagement on it is just crazy. Of course, you get people saying, "Oh, it's too much," or "Oh, it's this, that, and this." But great thing is that filters people out. And when I actually show my own prospects and the clients what it kind of looks like, they just love it, because it's something never really heard before. Not some guy in maybe a different country who just watched a video on how to do Facebook ads. They couldn't come up with that. So
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you mentioned this too, because that's also something that we've done in a different way, because we have somebody that's calling all the leads for our clients, obviously, tailored to the company with all their information, all that stuff, just to qualify them and then schedule them in the calendar. And so we have the liberty to generate as many leads as we possibly want, and then just call all of them, filter them out at our own costs. So one thing that we've done is we've kind of sectored the ads into two. It's more complicated than that, but I'll just simplify it here. The first section is, hey, like, when do we get that estimate, right? It's people that are like already getting estimates, or they just want an extra estimate or whatnot. And then there's the other part, which is just like, hey, I like the biggest question in your head right now is probably like, what is this going to cost? And those are the people that are usually going to be cheaper leads that we get on the phone. Maybe we give them a little rundown of, what, it's going to look like. And then if those people are qualified, then we end up scheduling them. So kind of like the same thing. Only difference is with painting, you don't really get $3 leads unless you're doing something wrong. So you have to be a little bit more resourceful. You can't really do landing pages, stuff like that, unless, for instance, cabinetry, popcorn ceilings, those two, the top of my head, there's the one that you can get, $3 leads even. Those ones we use landing pages, and we actually do pretty much the same thing, except that, with cabinetry, it's just, hey, how many cabinets do you have? Cool. This is how much it's going to cost approximately based on, the company we're working with. And with popcorn ceilings, it's just like, hey, how many rooms approximately, or, what's the size if they know, and then, how many pot lights do you want, for example? And then we give them a quote on that. It's never like a precise quote. I don't know if it's precise. I like to give them like a range that the estimator can work around, because sometimes, tools are wrong. Sometimes the person is wrong and they entered the wrong number of doors. You don't want to screw the estimator over. So then once they've gone through that, usually it'll be about 10% of those people that end up sticking, and they're like, okay, well, I'm not, unhappy about the amount that I was told. I'm going to fill out more information about myself, reach out, and that's when we call them and we schedule them. And usually, because they've gone, so this is some sauce right here. When we were running ads for cabinetry without having a landing page, we would actually, the cost to schedule a qualified estimate was actually more than when we had this kind of funnel, almost like you said, like a quiz funnel where they would enter all of these details, simply because it's like building trust in a way, right? Like you're building a commitment, you're building trust, and you don't feel like you're gonna just be sold to like hardcore sales, right? Because you've already been given a price, you're already kind of, okay, well, this is cool. I'm interested in maybe getting a more precise quote. So that's helped, and it's also helped increase the close rate of our estimator. So whenever we get the chance, when we see the cost per lead is really low, then we usually run something like that too. So definitely, like you said, can't run that in some basement in India. So it helps.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, I sometimes I'll see like super low cost per leads on YouTube or somebody showing it, and then you actually look at the ad and they're talking about some showcase program. And trust me, when I first started out, I ran those a couple times, and you're just going to get people very low quality who are thinking like it's some sort of free renovation. Now, with advertising, you're going to get that no matter what advertising you do. Some people are just absolutely clueless. They just go through life like NPCs, but typically like when you avoid that area, you'll get better results. And with my estimator, like, yeah, we try to make it as accurate as possible. Like we speak with the client, like, all right, we have a Google sheet for it. All right, like what's the ballpark range for this? But of course, it's like at the end of the day, it's it's going to give out a number, but that's not necessarily going to be accurate. And so in the thank you page, we actually say like a range. And oftentimes, like when that automated text goes out, they might say, "Oh, it wasn't too much for me," or "It was too much for me," or the number looked high, but I had a couple questions. And one of the best angles that we've done is saying like, "Yeah, it's the estimator tool is great, but at the end of the day, it's like the best option to actually give you, an accurate, detailed quote is, of course, scheduling that appointment." And sometimes it can act as like a price anchor where, depending on the area, they might see a price that's very high, but they're still kind of open to seeing if they can do something. And then the contractor says a price like a little bit lower, but still very high, and it kind of price anchors and helps them close.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious to see, because you mentioned a showcase program. Now, we've
Yeah.
actually ran an offer that's a showcase program, but I'm guessing it's not the same as your showcase program. We
Probably not.
basically came up with this thing of like, hey, if you let us take marketing footage in your house, we'll give you like a discount or something. And just
Mhm.
because nobody's ever seen it before, right? Kind of like new
Yeah.
performs better than better. Like something that nobody's ever seen before is always gonna perform better than something that, is just like, oh, 15% versus 10% discount. Like, no difference, literally none. And when we ran that offer, people saw so much credibility in that the leads were like incredibly cheaper. The, selling rate, I think the guys were closing 40-50% of the estimates were scheduling, they were printing. And then other people started doing it, and then it wasn't working as well. But that's why you always got to be thinking about new stuff. So is that the same kind of showcase offer?
It's definitely different. It's like qualify, eligibility, like hey, almost something like it's some sort of government funded program.
Ah, okay. It was like,
And
oh,
I
15K grant. I think I saw
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, it's funny. I know this is very popular among third-party lead vendors, like companies who put their card on the ads, they generate a bunch of leads, and then they sell it to four professionals. That's like a big one for them. Like this 2024 bathroom remodel relief service. I've seen some pretty wild stuff, and I'm like, man, if I was a client of theirs, I I would not be happy, because there is no way those leads are good.
Side note here, I don't know. It's hard for us to explain this to, our clients, or to sound believable, not sound like conspiracy theorists saying this, but when you're down the rabbit hole and you look at third-party lead vendors, you're like, there's nothing closer to a scam than this. Like these guys are printing money on the back of a ridiculous claims. Angie's got sued by the FTC. What is this?
Yeah.
False
Yeah.
advertising, high quality leads. No, you're sending them to five guys. That's not anywhere near high quality, and they're
Yeah.
generating them the same way that we're doing it. It's kind of like we're our clients' personal Angies in a
Mhm.
way, except we're not selling leads to everybody else. Do you ever get this, like clients asking you, "Oh, and the leads they're exclusive to me," right? Like it's almost like PTSD to them. It's crazy. I don't
Yeah.
think they're in
Sometimes,
business.
Yeah, sometimes I forget, like I have to actually remind them like, hey, we're not going to sell this person's information to three other dudes. Yeah, and it sucks for everyone but them. Like, of course, they're making huge bankroll. Maybe they acquire a lead for $50, but they sell it to four guys. Well, boom, they just made $150 profit right there. And I mean, especially like with those like kind of other companies who aren't as popular. I know one is like Cost Guide, for example. With the ads
Mm.
that they're running, I'm sure they're generating like super cheap $5 to $10 leads just because of the nature of the ad, like bathroom remodel relief service. If you live in an eligible zip code, like see if you qualify for it. It just sounds like free essentially. But it also sucks for the customer as well because they're getting like spam called by all these people. And if you actually look at the reviews, you see both sides of the spectrum where it's like the contractor complaining and then the customer's like, dude, I'm getting all these spam calls. Like make it
Yeah.
stop. And it's just, yeah, it's just a recipe for disaster. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know the future of those companies. I mean, everybody needs leads, so I'm sure they'll just keep cruising by.
Yeah, no, let's talk about mindset too. I think mindset is something that's really important when you're running, especially a brick and mortar company, right? Because it's kind of like your little baby in a way. So tell me about what are the things in terms of mindset that you've seen, I guess you could say, be the difference between companies that are doing above $500,000 a year and beyond, and the companies that are, having a hard time cracking like 300, 400. Like, what do you see as the big difference in mindset?
Yeah, I will say one thing, like, and it's funny to mention this, but just basic business etiquette, in a way, it's a weird word, but when we're running our own ads, we're getting a lot of appointments on the calendar. We're probably booking 5 a day. My closer, he's very busy, and what we find time and time again is the people who put above 500K per year, it's like a 90% show up rate. But the people who are just starting out, or maybe they're just they've been at this certain revenue for a while and they just can't seem to crack it, they don't show up. I don't know.
Mm.
It's like it's business etiquette. It's also respect. It's also just I don't know. I know if I book a call, I'm either going to show up or I'm going to let them know like, hey, pull the plug on this, canceling. But oftentimes we find that it's like they just don't show up, and that could be like due to lack of organization or, like I said, business etiquette. But that's like one of the mindset things that I've found with these companies, right? And also the higher ones, they understand the aspect of a long-term business relationship, like not like a no matter what you do on the onboarding call, say like, hey, not a get rich quick scheme. It's this is a long-term business thing. No matter how much you set expectations, you can still, especially with the smaller guys, expect like a overnight difference. Like their business is just going to transform within a few weeks, which it is never the case. So that's another thing, is just understanding long-term business investing and growth with a company like ours.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that too. I think one of the bigger ones that I've seen as well is a lot of contractors think they need more leads, but in reality, like if you broke down their process, it's like, okay, well, you're getting below 10% referral. You should be getting at least 30% referral rate. And then, like you're not really pushing to get reviews on Google Maps. And then, the guys that you hire, they're not really consistent. You're always having to hire over and over and over again. And you think you need more leads, but in reality, you just aren't your business is the place. You have a bucket, right? You have a bucket, there's a bunch of little holes in them, and then you think that adding more water is going to be the solution. The water is going to get out anyways. There's holes, you have to fix the holes in the bucket first. So I think that the reason why a lot of the companies that you get on the phone that are above 500K, the reason why they show up more, they're more committed, right? I think that that's the takeaway here. The more committed is because they understand that their problem might actually just be getting more business. They understand all of the other aspects of running the company. And so they're truly solving the right problem. Whereas a smaller company that doesn't really understand how the business works and all of those things, they think they need more leads. And so they're really just aiming in the dark and clicking on all of these fancy little shiny objects, trying to get the silver bullet, when in reality, as Alex Hormozy says, it's not a silver bullet, it's a million little silver BBs that you have to do in order to win. So I think a lot of contractors, and this can be summed up into one thing, it's that they're going to try to blame external sources for internal problems. And this is locus of control. I don't know if that rings a bell for you.
No, no.
Locus of control. Okay.
Oh,
Locus of
never.
control is basically the extent to which you blame like things that you have no control over on things that are outside of you versus you, right? I guess I explained it maybe wrong, but essentially, I'll make it concrete for you. If you own a business, it's not growing, and you're blaming the economy rather than looking at your sales process, looking at all these things, that's external locus of control. Internal locus of control is your company isn't growing, you're just thinking about what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it's never black and white. And this is something that people don't understand. It's never about just being self-accountable because people have an ego, whether you want it or not. The thing is, it's always specific things that they have an external locus of control about rather than everything that they have an internal locus of control. Like if you blame everything on yourself, I'm talking you go to jail and you're innocent and you're blaming the system or whatever. No, think about how did you get in jail for no absolute reason, right? Like that would be like to an extreme level of an internal locus of control. And sometimes people will think that they have an internal locus of control. They think that they take responsibility for those things, but the things that truly matter, they're not actually taking responsibility for. They think, oh, well, definitely, I've grown my business to 500. Maybe you've talked to people that are like 1 million a year. It's crazy. I've talked to guys that are 500, $600,000 a year, and they think that to scale, they have to price shop people. They have to lower their prices so that they can get more business. I mean, talk about a limiting belief, right? They think that the bigger they get, the cheaper their pricing has to be to get more jobs and the less margins they have. No, not at all, right? But they've come up with that belief to make the fact that they can't scale their company comfortable, right? They want to get comfortable with the reality they live in. And like that's the sad truth about, I feel like contractors, especially brick and mortar businesses, they don't have a huge sense of community. They don't look for the need of networking with other guys and creating groups that, stay accountable. Whereas I guess a lot of online entrepreneurs do that. They get communities, they get coaching, all of those things. A lot of these guys, they don't. And then they end up in the same rut and the same beliefs. And I don't know if that's something that you've noticed on your end as well.
Yeah, it's definitely like resourcefulness. Like my clients who are younger, below 30, oftentimes I find them in, other coaching programs or they're studying sales or like one of them, his Instagram page is just like it's the most optimized Instagram page I've ever seen. He's like constantly doing videos. He's updating the socials. People are loving it, and he's getting a ton of business with it. He's being resourceful and he understands the benefits and the ROI that he can get with something like doing that. Where some, like you said, limiting belief, they're like, well, people on Facebook, I mean, they're just gonna like search for like the cheapest option and it's just gonna be a terrible lead. Our biggest client, he does probably around 12 mil per year. And we've been running ads for I would say probably like a year and a month. And they understand, they have multiple acquisition channels, of course, but they understand that aspect of the business, especially with social media. And so like another thing we've kind of into, especially like the last 6 months is, as I mentioned, like when I first introduced myself, it was the referral partnerships. Has that like something that you've dove into, like getting your painters like referrals with maybe realtors or builders?
I don't think no, we haven't dived into that yet. Now that you mention it, I'll probably mention it in a team meeting or something. But we haven't really had the need to. They make so I like okay. I'll take a step back. The biggest bottleneck with a painting company is not getting more clients. Like I almost feel useless sometimes because like every guy that I talk to in networking events are always like, Julian, like it's not about getting more business. It's about getting like consistent painters that paint, right? Because it's about you can run about 10K a month per painter that you have, give or take, somewhere around that. More so in Canada than the US. I don't know too much about the US for those rates. And if you're getting a company that's adding 50, $80,000 a month, you now have to hire 5 to 8 more guys. And it's tough. Like these guys do not grow on trees, especially if you don't have the right process, if you don't have the right, hiring people, all those things. You can't really scale that quickly. And so even if we did all the referral partnership, like there's be a point where they're just like, Julian, like there's too much work, too much. We're getting our clients so much work, we can't even grow more ad spend. because they can't take it on, you know? So it's almost like we've hit our own maximum. You know, the worst, the I should say the best bottleneck to have is your clients make so much money, you can't help them make more money than they're already making.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they eventually want to turn it off. I can think of a couple times when I've had to, remind them that it's like it might be a position where they have as much work as they need. Now, could they take on maybe like one or two more? Yes. Would it be easy? Like, no, but I've had to remind them to kind of keep up the momentum. Especially if the campaign's performing well and they're just getting the best leads ever, it's like the last thing that I want to happen is
Okay.
just pause it. And then when we turn it back on, all the momentum's gone, the results go down in the dumps. So yeah, I can think of a couple times where I've had to have those conversations and the
Yeah,
whole yeah. Oh,
100%. And something else that's funny about mindset that's interesting too is that a lot of people, I don't think, and this may be controversial, I don't think price shoppers exist. I genuinely don't. I don't think people are ever just going to be looking for the cheapest price. I think they're just uneducated. And anybody that I work with that's ever told me, Julian, the leads you're sending me, they're just price shopping, whatever, whatever. Anytime that I've lost those clients and then I've worked with a bigger company in that same city, they were closing the same leads, right? What a surprise. And it's funny. There's a guy I work with, Edmonton, one of my favorite clients ever. When we first started working, he was closing more from his Google ads than he was from our ads. And over time, he got better and better at sales. And then he completely turned off his Google ads and put all of his money in Facebook ads because the return he was getting from actually getting more volume and selling more people. And also, I guess it's, the personal aspect was kicking in at that point, was so much higher that he was actually maybe losing money from Google ads at that point. So it just goes to show that anybody that's really just complaining about price shoppers as well, I think that's a big mindset switch that they can have, is just like, you're just not good enough at sales. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, but you just need to level up. Like, this is what hard feels like, right? Alex Ramosi says it. Like, I'm
mm,
sorry to tell you, but like, if you want to actually make a lot of money in business, like, you have to sell people that don't have the right mindset right away, right? You have to make them understand that, is it really about the price, John, or is it about, getting that warranty, getting this painted in time, getting all these different benefits? And then John is going to be like, well, it's about those benefits. Damn right. So do you want to go with that guy that's half our price and maybe get your project done, or do you want to be 100% sure you're going to get everything done? Now that you say, it's about changing the mindset of the leads that you talk to. So have you seen anything significant with your clients in terms of sales?
yeah. Yeah. In terms of that, it's really just all about educating them to value expertise and experience over that price. Like I can think of like Bob, for example, in our interview, he just mentioned like one of the best sales techniques is just being personable, like just making it easy on the customer and also not being lazy. And it's funny because like sometimes like I'll get price shoppers myself. Like, oh, there's this one company who says they work on like it's like a $800 setup fee and like only commission. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, like you can definitely go with them, but you know, is that company just starting out? Do they have a lot of data? Is it going to be right? Or, are you going to go with a company who, yes, of course, they'll charge more, but with that fee, of course, they have more to invest in actually a great team to deliver even better results that that you get to experience, such as an appointment setter, better ads, better content. So it's really, I hear that a lot, and it's funny when I'm on calls with contractors and they bring that up because I'm like, you experience this yourself. Yeah, just a little side thing right there.
I mean, like you said, right, with Bob, persistence is key. Like, always, even the guys at Painter Growth that do coaching for painters,
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah,
you have, great. So yeah, Mike over there, awesome guy.
yeah.
And they preach that. They say, hey, whoever, like, we stop following up when we hear no,
Mm.
right? It's that simple. And if you just go with that philosophy, you're always going to win, because the bar has never been lower with work ethic, especially around contractors. So many times my clients will tell me it's so easy to win jobs. All you have to do is do the bare minimum. Literally, there are people that are our competitors, your competitors, whoever's listening to this, these are your competitors. They're going to drive by the house, give it a look, put the estimate under the front door, or even just send it by email. They're not even going to talk to the homeowner. These are the people you're competing with. When you're talking to that homeowner and they say, "Oh, we got a quote for cheaper," like there are probably so many cracks that you can uncover if all you say is just, "Oh, okay, well, if you don't mind, John, maybe we could just go over that and by side and kind of compare." And then they bring up a napkin with like a number written on it. It just makes no sense. If they understood how the world runs, especially with
Yeah.
contractors, they'd see that usually you pay for what you get. You really do pay for what you get. In any marketing agency, any painting contractor, any remodeler, GC, like it's very rare. I should say this. It's very rare you don't pay for what you get.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, it would be like me sending the recording to this of like one of my prospects in the pipeline and be like, all right, let me know what you think if you're ready to sign up today for a, a 3-month marketing program. You really do pay for what you get. And, remodelers and GCs, the ones that we work with who are at least doing more than 500K, usually they can always take on more work. And so that's kind of why we really implemented the referral partners. And we've just seen it perform amazing because, like, just going back to the buying journey, a lot of them ask, what's it going to look like before they ask, all right, which contractor can I trust to actually do this? And so, especially like with a big ticket remodel, like maybe a whole home renovation or an addition, they might speak to an architect or a designer before they ever speak to a contractor. And so, you know, like you said, the bar's never been lower. 99% of those contractors never even speak to those people. They never even try to reach out. When in reality, like, they could be taking massive advantage of that opportunity. Like, very, very wealthy homeowners go to interior designers to have, the best couch or whatever, the best like looking whatever they want. And with architects, they have to actually make those drawings. And so whoever has that referral relationship with that professional is most likely going to get the contract. I even heard from one of my clients that he lost a contract because the client's architect already had a contractor that they work with, and actually the contractor was less experienced. He didn't have the same portfolio in terms of project photos, most definitely didn't have a better process, but at the end of the day, he lost it just because that client was working with that architect. So
Yeah, who would you recommend, for any type of contractor? Like, what's the thought process behind who should I reach out to? How should I reach out to those people in terms of building those relationships, right? What's the value proposition that you offer to those people? Let's say that for any contracting business.
yeah, so it really depends on what type of jobs you want to go for. So like maybe bigger ticket additions and whole home renovations. If they want anything like above 150K, or maybe they want to go after custom home builds, I would say go after architects. And architects are super easy to go after because a lot of times, like, nobody's really reached out to them. They're kind of in the shadows. They aren't being hit up as much. Like, even with realtors, like, realtors get hit up by solar guys, roofers, like all these different companies. But like architects, they're very open, and kind of like a little spoiler, how we get these referral relationships is we send mass automated cold emails to them. But yeah, for anything high ticket, architect, definitely designers as well for kitchens and baths. And then if, say, a contractor wants to start getting more handyman work or maybe more like quick jobs, maybe anywhere from like the 10 to 30K range, then realtors are great, especially since there's a huge quantity of them, especially like the luxury realtors. But the value proposition, we have a couple that are really proven to work. I know for the realtors, especially for maybe they have a listing up, and I can actually pull it up right here.
And showing the sauce.
Yeah, I won't show the exact script, but I'll kind of tell you the offer, and I can show you this later as well. But pretty much, the value that we bring is largely based on our famous 24-hour turnaround for bids on inspection reports. So that's like, just making sure the inspection's good, making sure everything's taken care of with the realtor's client, and then also like real-time tech support on construction-related questions that their clients may have. And that, I mean, it can really be applied to designers and architects as well. But yeah, I mean, the same with designers and architects. That universally, what's going to work the best is speed, definitely speed, expertise. And we always mentioned, a little background. Maybe the client has like 55-star Google reviews. Definitely speed, expertise, and just support as well. Those are like the best value propositions that we can give to those professionals.
Yeah, 100%. And even for painters, you know, having roofers, even relationships with the remodel, because
Mhm.
painting, remodeling usually goes one in
Yeah.
one.
100%.
Do a lot of your remodelers do painting as well? Well, Ken Clark, was a pleasure talking to you. If anybody wants to, you know, they have a remodeler friend or somebody like that, go check him out. Remodel Favor, link will be down in the description. And yeah, man, pleasure speaking with you. Of
Likewise, pleasure speaking, Julian.
course.